G'day everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Peachy and today I am going to talk about, once again, one of the things I am most passionate about, one of the things I love talking about, and I have for a very long time. I am currently 44 years old and I think I got my first of these figures when I would have been about probably 6 years old. So I've been collecting these or into these for a long time. And that is the WWF LJN WWF Wrestling Superstar figures. So today we are going to talk about my top 5 figures of all time. So I think it was about 4, 5, 6 months ago I did my 5 worst figures from LJN, and that was actually quite easy to do because there are a couple of figures that I've never really liked, and that was really easy for me to do. I guess I've kind of delayed this video because I really want to get this right. There's a lot of figures I do like. So I didn't want to just go on my top 5 or LJNs due to value. I wanted to try and do it based on a few different things. And I kind of worked it out. It was going to be playability. That was going to be one of the big ones because there's no point having a figure like Rick Rude where you can't really do much with it. 2, I looked at obviously the resemblance to the wrestler, how they look. And I guess the third one kind of overlaps a little bit with the resemblance, but I guess the paint work put into these figures. So let's go and have a look at my top 5 WWF LJN Wrestling Superstar figures. Okay, another criteria which I didn't put on is that managers will be excluded from the top 5. It will just be solely the wrestlers themselves. But in saying that, there were some amazing looking managers in the series. So we had Jimmy Hart. What a perfect looking resemblance to Jimmy Hart. I guess if I had to rate the figures, Jimmy Hart is perfect. Great looking figure. Another one would have to be Mr. Fuji. Again, an awesome looking resemblance to Mr. Fuji, and with the cane and his little nice little, I guess, his suit. I guess you've also got, I guess you want to say Vince McMahon. That's a pretty cool figure as well. You got Bobby Heenan. One of my less favourites was Freddie Classy Blassie. I don't really like that figure. But then you got Captain Lou, another great looking figure. So some of the managers' figures in the series were amazing. But I guess it wasn't pretty much all except Freddie Classy Blassie. Just never really liked that figure. Probably because of the clothes he's in. I thought they could have made him a bit more flamboyant than just that boring yellow and orange clothes that he's wearing. And in at number 5, some people will probably be a bit critical of this wrestler, I guess, but I've always liked the figure. Even as when I was quite young, always thought this figure was a great resemblance to the wrestler. Thought it looked great, and I guess the clothes he was in the LJN was actually what he did wear quite a bit in the early stages of his career in the 80s. And coming in at number 5 is this figure right here. That is Mr. Brutus Beefcake. So it's a great looking figure. Look at that artwork, fantastic. He did wear those that wrestling attire quite a bit in the 80s. And that face there, quite a good looking figure. Does resemble Brutus Beefcake in this time. You've got these nice little I guess, I don't know what you call them, gloves, I guess. Really awesome looking figure. I know people don't really like Brutus Beefcake. He has got his detractors. But I always love this figure. It's always been one of my favourites, and I guess the resemblance is pretty awesome to Brutus Beefcake. As well as that, the playability of this figure is quite good. I guess you can do the clothesline. I guess you could get the sleeper in if you really wanted it, and a few other things. So the figure has got good playability, and the resemblance and the paintwork, all the things I'm going on in my criteria, definitely a tick. And this was one of the first figures I did ever get when I was young. In Australia, we pretty much only got series 1, 2 and 3, and it was very hard to get any other series. I don't know why. They did seem to sell quite well, and for whatever reason no one decided they were going to import them anymore. Whatever happened, but I'm glad I did pick up Brutus Beefcake later on, and this is a pretty nice paintwork as well. So that figure's in pretty mint shape, so I love that figure. That's Brutus Beefcake at number 5. Alright, coming in at number 4. This is a figure I pretty much just saw in wrestling magazines as a kid. They never really came to Australia. And I guess back when I was growing up, the internet wasn't around. You couldn't really Google anything and ask. You know, you couldn't really buy things off eBay. They did have order forms in WWE or F magazine back then, a couple of other wrestling magazines, but I think it was about $16 American to buy them back in like 1989. So that the exchange rate back there was quite high, plus then you had to send them away to America. There was not always any guarantees you were going to get the figure anyway. I think I would have been about 10 years old in 1989. So I guess having money and all that sort of stuff back then was hard. I didn't have any. And of course, I'd see these wrestling figures in the magazine and kind of wish that I lived in America. But I kind of found out that some of these figures didn't really make it to America either. They were more Canadian. And the first figure I am talking about at number 4, my 4th favourite figure in the LJN series, it's actually Haku. So I just love this figure, always have. Do love the paintwork. Like that paintwork there, that's amazing. Like it does kind of pretty nicely with his Islander gimmick. And I mean, pretty lucky that my Haku is pretty much in mint condition. There's not many paint, not much paint missing from this figure, so I do love it. It's got the nice bare feet, kind of like the Jimmy Superfly style. That resemblance to Haku is pretty good, I think. The paintwork looks great, and again, if you were to wrestle with this figure or play with this figure, you'd have a lot of fun. You can do the body slams, clotheslines. Do like that pose with the arms up. It kind of allows you to use them a bit more in the ring if you were a kid, I guess. I hate playing with this one. But at number 4, it is Mr. Haku, Mr. King Haku himself, Haku. Alright, coming in at number 3, this guy is arguably the biggest wrestler in the history of wrestling, or the WWF. Growing up, I guess when I was young, about 6, 7, you always think wrestling was real back then, and I was always worried this guy was going to get pinned. And I guess by the time WrestleMania 6 came along, I was kind of more into Ultimate Warrior. I did like Hogan still, but I was more an Ultimate Warrior fan. And coming in at number 3, it's one of the first ever LJN figures I did ever buy. I think it might have been the first. My Hogan's, I've had about 6 of this figure, but I never get a good one. His knee pads are always worn, and that's the first Hulk Hogan. I've always kind of liked this figure. I did wonder why they put his legs like that, but I guess if they did extend them, he would be pretty tall. I guess his resemblance there with the headband, as you can see, my Hogan is a little bit beat up. I don't know why. I've had about 6 Hogans, like I said, and this is pretty much the best one I've ever had. I guess overall it's not too bad, but compared to a lot of my figures, he's a bit banged up, and the knee pad is where I always seem to get the paint missing. But good resemblance. I do like the colours. That's what Hogan pretty much wore all throughout the 80s, early 90s. And you also got the belt, like you can see, I'm missing the championship belt. But this figure here, really good playability. You've got the arms, so you can do, I guess, the clothesline, the body slam, and I guess with those legs, you can even do the patented leg drop at the end. So I do like this figure. Like I said, it was one of the first ones I ever got. I think it was the first one. I think I got about 3 at a time the first time I ever bought them. But I do love this figure. I guess it's got a lot of childhood memories growing up with it. One of the toys that I guess, if I had to pick, reflects my childhood, it would be this Hulk Hogan Series 1 LJN figure. Perfect looking figure, love it. So that's Hulk Hogan at number 3. And in at number 2. Again, this is one of those figures that I never had as a child. And I guess I'd open up the wrestling magazine as a kid and see these figures advertised for sale in a little page on WWE magazine. It would kind of tease me to have all these figures that were never available in Australia. Pretty much the LJN Series 4, 5, 6, the 89 series. They'd be advertised in the wrestling magazines, and back before, I guess, the days of the internet, eBay, easy ways to buy them without having to pay a fortune. And that was the Ultimate Warrior. So I was lucky maybe about 6 years ago, kind of before the LJN prices really went up, I was able to buy pretty much all of the 89 series for about, plus a couple other figures, a couple of Hogans and the LJN figures for about, it was about $1,000. So not too bad, that's Australian. So I paid a little bit for them, but those figures would all be worth well over $1,000 now, especially in the condition I have them. So that figure was the Ultimate Warrior, and back then we never really had the Ultimate Warrior toy. I remember going into a toy shop one day, it would have been probably in 91, and I guess the Ultimate Warrior was huge back in 91 or 90, 91, around that time, and they finally did have an Ultimate Warrior toy, but it was in the Hasbros. And what the Hasbros threw up was this absolute nightmare. So even as about an 11-year-old, 10-year-old kid, I saw this toy. It was the Ultimate Warrior, so I kind of got excited, but part of me, I just hate this Hasbro legs together, this whole design, just don't like it. It's absolutely terrible looking figure. It was the Ultimate Warrior, but it wasn't the Ultimate Warrior that I wanted. I was very disappointed with this, but beggars couldn't be choosers back in 1991 or 1990, whenever this figure came out. So I did pick it up. It was one of my first, I think it was the first Hasbro I ever did buy, was this one. It might have been the second, third, I don't know, I can't really remember. So like I said, 6 years ago I did buy the LJNs, and it's this one I did pick up. So like I said, all my 89 series are all in pretty good condition, literally mint. I didn't pay too much for them. I got in before, I guess, COVID came along and everyone was buying them. So I got a nice bargain. You can see there the face looks quite good, and the hair, got the nice warrior. I guess I do put this figure probably a bit higher as well, because it was such a hard figure to get as a kid. I never had it, and I always dreamt of having it. And even the paintwork there, you got that Ultimate Warrior, I guess the mask design, symbol, what do you want to call it. And I guess the orange, which I think Warrior did wear a few times, especially in the early days. I always thought his face looked a bit funny at the start, but it's kind of actually grown on me now. You got the wristbands, you got the tassels, and so I think that's an awesome looking figure. It's also worth a lot of money, so I'm quite happy to have Ultimate Warrior. That's why he's my second favourite LJN of all time. And now on to my number one LJN figure of all time. Number one figure of all time for LJN. This wrestler was pretty much one of my favourite wrestlers growing up as well, and he was also one of the first ever LJNs I did pick up. I think when in Australia did get the series, we got them like 1, 2 and 3, series 1, 2 and 3 all in one big heap. So it was good that you could buy a lot of different figures all at once, but pretty much did dry up after that. And that figure, the shirt kind of gives it away. Unfortunately, I only had one LJN figure, which is a bit disappointing, because I thought if you had had a second one, that would have been awesome too. And that is this amazing looking figure. It's the Macho Man, Randy Savage. So that figure there, absolutely love. That's the ring attire you kind of, I guess, you remember Macho Man wearing. Got that 3 diamonds with the pink. Love that face scan, or not really a scan, that's probably what makes it even more better. Got the cool hair, the perfect attire. I do love the pose. It kind of allows you to do the big elbow drop off the ring pose if you're playing with them as well. And I even as a kid, I was like, that figure is just an amazing looking figure. It's pretty much always been my favourite figure. And I guess Macho Man's also been one of my favourite wrestlers growing up as well. He's always been top, I guess, with Warrior, Hogan, Savage, and a few others, Tito Santana. Growing up in the 80s, those were my 4 favourites. And just an awesome looking figure to have. So I guess it's been part of my life for a long time now. Like I said, I've had this figure, or at least a type of Randy Savage, since I was about 6 years old. So that's my top 5 LJN figures of all time. I hope you agree. Maybe you don't. Like I said, it was just the wrestlers, and there's some amazing looking LJN figures in that series. So it's hard. That's why probably why I have to delay this video a little bit. So I wanted to get this top 5 correct. I've kind of ummed and ahed about it, but to me, they're the top 5 figures of all time, and like I've rated them according to their actual realistic, or their looks, their attire, and also their playability. So that was the first, and also the paintwork. So that's kind of the 3 or 4 things I did look at. I hope you agree with me. If you didn't, tell me down in the comments who you think I should have put in. But thanks for watching, and keep collecting LJNs. See you later.